live.
There we go.
All right, perfect. We go 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool. That was
Sean.
much better than last episode. I think you forgot
Yeah,
what we were doing.
yeah. I don't know what happened, man.
You had a week off now,
It's
though.
called age. Yeah, I've had
Yeah.
some time to refresh,
Yes.
a little rejuvenation.
A little holiday weekend is always
Yeah,
good for the soul.
that's
So
right.
yeah,
That's right. Hope
excited.
everyone had a great 4th of July. Sean and I decided to take last Friday off. A lot of
Yeah.
people traveled during that time. I went on a little camping trip. How about you, Sean? How was your weekend?
No, we went to a party here on the weekend, but not Friday night. We just kind of hung out. Man, it is July in Austin, and this is
Oh,
one of the
yeah.
hottest summers we've had. Like the forecast for this weekend is like 106 and 107.
Yep.
So we're going to be hiding in our air conditioned cave for the weekend. There's like, I like working out in the heat, but not that kind of heat, so
I get it, man. But
that's
there's
just too
something,
much.
I ran today, this
Yeah.
afternoon, out in this 95-degree weather
Yeah.
with the heat index probably 100. It
Yeah.
feels like it with the humidity. But I like to get, I don't know what it is about me. I must be nuts to get out there and do it.
It's
But
kind of like working out in the rain. Like
yeah.
it makes you feel like you're doing more, I think. It makes you feel more
Yep.
like most people would not do this and I'm doing it. So I must be special. Like
That's
it's
right.
good for the ego.
That's
That's
right.
basically what it is.
It's
I don't know if it's good for your body or not, but it's definitely good
You're
for the ego.
pouring out sweat. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that does play into that. It makes you feel like you're accomplishing more, but you're probably not. You're probably slowing down. You're not burning as many calories because you're not going as quick because you're
No telling.
exhausted. So,
all right. Well, I know we got a quick show today. You've got places to be.
yeah.
So we're going to be talking about how to use interviews as a marketing strategy.
I titled it, how to use interviews as a B2B marketing strategy. I love this. And you sent this to me.
And you could also use this for consumer as well.
Yeah,
B2B,
you could.
B2C.
You could. Absolutely. It could work both ways. But I love it from my standpoint, being someone in B2B. This is perfect for me. You sent it to me yesterday and I read over it. I was like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, there's 3 different ways. So I got this PDF, and we'll give credit here in a minute where I got it from. But there's actually 3 different ways, 2 of which he does not talk about in this PDF that you could use this. So we'll talk about all 3 ways you could use this, but then the way you do it is basically the same. The formula is basically the same.
Sure.
No matter which method you want to use. So
yeah,
I think it'd be really good. We've got some other stuff if we got time. If not, we'll save those for next week, next episode. Kind of in the same vein. We got some email CTAs, questions, some different things. I'm on a couple lists that have been handing out some pretty good stuff lately. So,
good.
We'll share those if we have time. If not, we'll just roll it to the next episode.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, what do you got over there to drink in Knoxville, Louisville
here locally.
Yeah, it's Louisville there and Louisville up in Kentucky.
So I stopped by the Kroger yesterday and did my own little variety pack where I picked up a little assortment of some different concoctions. One of them was a zombie dust. Never had this. This is by Three Floyds Brewing Company. It is an undead pale ale. So it's not an IPA. It's just
a good pale ale. Okay.
Just a pale ale.
I like it.
Zombie dust. So
zombie dust. I like that.
It says this intense hopped and gushing undead pale ale will be one's only respite after the zombie apocalypse, created with our marvelous friends in the comic industry. Cool. It's got some good.
So hold that can up again.
Yeah, the artwork on here is pretty good.
So it actually looks like an energy drink.
It really does. Yeah.
It's like I could see that if it was a tall can, it'd be an energy drink. Pretty cool.
Let's see. It's about I think it's like 6.5% from what I remember. Yep, 6.5%, 62 IBUs.
Okay.
So,
wow, that's pretty high on the IBUs. We'll see how that
yeah.
pans out. Well, I went with a July. I'm going to share the screen here on the old video.
Ooh.
So I went with one from Austin Beer Works, and it's
Mm-hmm.
called Cold Glory. It's only available in July for July 4th.
Oh, nice.
So it's got that red, white, and blue can, got fireworks and eagles and pie and stuff all over the can.
Yep.
This is just a traditional American lager, nothing fancy, no sugars and spices and everything nice. Is just pure, just lager. So
show that artwork again. I want to see that the
yeah.
Is that fireworks on the side?
Yeah, let me do the screen share because it's a little, you can see it.
Yeah, it looks like you got the pie, you got the flag, you got fireworks,
A couple
you got
different eagles. There's a hot dog on there.
Bigfoot there with the flames on the side.
Yeah,
monster truck.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I don't know what this is. Oh, that's the monster truck wheel. Okay, yeah, I got it. I saw those as two different things. Yes, it's kind of cool artwork, and they only have it in July, like 1 month only. So
that's cool.
that was kind of
very cool.
Limited, that old scarcity marketing there just comes out once a year.
It works. It works every time.
So yeah, just traditional lager look.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you definitely got that ale color to it. So
yeah.
All right. Well, let's cheers it up.
All right. Cheers.
I've almost forgotten what a lager tastes like because we do so many craft beers.
Right.
That when I drink a lager, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what my first beer tasted like. Not my first one maybe, but it's better than that. This is pretty good. Just straight up, just cool, refreshing summer lager.
And in this heat, that's what to me, that's what I crave. I
crave like the lemon shandy from, or like the Rockin' Porch from Sam Adams. It's hard to find though. But it's a lemon shandy. Those are really good too.
Yeah.
And I also go with the Mike's Harder kind of punch drinks and lemonades and stuff this time of year. But yeah, this one's only 5.5%. Pretty traditional. So I'm going to go ahead and rate it. I'm going to give mine a solid 4. Like it's just a good, smooth drinking beer.
That's good. 4.
You're still deciding on yours.
Yeah, this is very light, refreshing.
Almost like a pale ale.
Yeah, for a pale ale.
So is it as bitter as the IBUs would have indicated?
It is. That's the one thing. It's light, refreshing, but there is a little bit of
that aftertaste, or
that aftertaste a little bitter for me. So I'm going to give it a 2.9. A 2.9.
Oh, that's pretty low.
Yeah. Just not. It would not be one of my go-tos, but it is light. I mean, it's a light beer. It's refreshing, but
yeah.
From a taste wise, if I were not, I think a lot of this plays into the fact that I'm just came in from a 2-mile jog and I'm really thirsty. So anything probably is refreshing right now. So I'm not going to let that influence me. If I were completely in my environment, in a nice air conditioning house for several hours and just relaxing,
if there was
not be a go-to.
If there was a selection of 6 to 10 beers in the fridge, this would not be the one you.
This would not be the one. Yeah. Although I love the artwork. The artwork's great.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that. So I gotta, they get some points on the artwork, but for the beer itself, not a big fan. So.
All right. Well, let's roll into our topic. So I want to give full credit here. So I found this PDF. It's actually a client of one of our guests that we've had on, a friend of ours. I was doing some copy for them and doing some ad copy, Facebook ad copy. And I watched a webinar, and on this webinar, he gave out this a handout that had some of these tips and things that we're going to talk about today. But I wanted to give full credit. So it's David Newman from Do It Marketing, and you can go to doitmarketing.com. And if you go over here to his homepage on the right where it says watch our training, you can watch the training where I believe that's the training I watched. I watched a couple that has this and some other really good tips on it. So if you go to doitmarketing.com, there's a red watch our training button on the homepage. That's where you can find more goodies like what we're going to talk about today.
Cool.
So
that's great. I love this. I've never heard of Do It Marketing. So
yeah, he's got a book by the same name, Do It Marketing. Got a new book coming out soon. So hopefully we can get him on the podcast called Do It Selling.
I love it.
Which is kind of where this thing that we're going to talk about today, I think, leads to, is more the actual selling. But let me pull that up as well. So go ahead and you start your little preamble on it, on what you thought about it, because I sent it over to you, and then we'll start talking about it as I pull it up here.
Okay. So the whole strategy is using interviews to help market. And so, I mean, we were talking before the show, you can do this. When I think of it, and most of what from reading this, it's tailored to a B2B. It's a B2B format, but you could do this for B2C as well, to consumer marketing too. But I think of like high corporate level, C-level, C-suite that you're trying to get in touch with, and trying to develop a relationship with to move to the next level. I think this is a great strategy for doing that. So, I mean, the number one objective is to, get the door open, to these people, because a lot of times, you can drop emails all you want to, and, it's with your typical email. If, the way most people, 99% of the people do it is they're wanting something, they're wanting their time, and they don't have time for this. So you've got to be different. You got to come at it from a completely different standpoint. And the way you do it is by, I think this is a great strategy because you're catering to the ego, which most corporate executives have, right? And you're saying, I would like to interview you, and to get some sage wisdom from you on how you've succeeded, or how you've accomplished what
or
you've
even
accomplished.
And we'll go over the questions here in a minute, but even like what's going on in the industry and things like that, which you kind of do. And this is what I was talking about. There's 3 different ways you could do this, right? You could write an article for a trade magazine. Trade journals always need content.
Yep. That's right.
They've got plenty of advertisers and they need content to support that. And I've written, when I was doing this stuff for the Granite Company, I wrote some trade journal articles for those, because they need that filler to fill in between the ads, because you don't want just a whole book of ads, right? So they need articles from experts. So what you can do is you can approach a trade journal in your niche. Say, hey, I've got an idea for an article, because they're usually 2 to 3 months out, printing, if they do a print journal. They may have a site also that they could drop on a lot quicker. But you find out who the editor is or the publisher, reach out to them and say, I've got an idea for an article. You might call it something like how smart leaders at top companies profit from breakthrough ideas, or how top producers, create referrals for life, if you were in the financial services business or something.
Right.
So you just find something that would be interesting for readers and something that you would need input from these executives, right? So once you get the okay from the publisher, even before, really, you could just say you're doing research. You wouldn't have to have the agreement to write the article.
Right.
You could actually do it either way. Because if you came and said, I've got 10 people I've interviewed, I'd love to do an article putting some of these together, any publisher is going to jump on that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So really, you could do it either way. So when you reach out to these executives, you can say, hey, I'm doing an article for, I'm researching an article for trade journal they would recognize. Could we hop on the phone? I'd love to interview you.
That's perfect.
Right. And the reason, and you want to do this on the phone instead of back and forth by email, because especially if you can do it on Zoom, but they'll get to see your face. Because remember, the ultimate goal here is to get an appointment with these people and sell them something.
Right.
So you get them used to seeing your face, hearing your voice, and you're building rapport with them because you're asking them questions about, like you said, Jonathan, that are really good for their ego. They're getting to share their experience, and they're probably going to slip up and tell you some problems.
Yeah, of course they will. Yeah.
And
yeah,
then
absolutely.
you're gonna jot those down. And then what you do is after you've had this conversation with them, you just start following up with them and just have this consistent stream of communication. Jonathan, we've talked about some of the ways you followed up with these kind of clients, right? With things like a thank you card from Send Out Cards,
Yep.
or some type of you've sent. Tell us some of the things you've sent for those listeners that maybe haven't heard the stories before, but you've sent stuff that's totally not related to business to people before as part of your follow-up process.
Yeah. I mean, I'll send thank you cards. I'll send all sorts of little knickknacks, notes. Sometimes I won't even do send out cards. I'll just, I keep a little, in my, I guess you'd call it like a briefcase or whatever. I always keep a box of just handwritten note cards that just, and usually I try to find something that's not thank you or anything that's generic. I try to find something that's unique. Like, I found some that have pictures of little whales on them. It's like weird, just do something different. One's got, it's a piano keyboard and it says, "This note's for you," like, piano notes.
Classic dad joke there.
But, just something that's a little bit different. You always want to be just a little bit different to get them, top of mind. And so I'll keep a set of those just in my briefcase, just so I can pull out and quick, top of mind thinking, pull out after I meet with someone or after I've interviewed someone on a podcast or something like that. Just pull out something like that. Take a pen, scratch a note on there. Thanks so much. Appreciate the time. To me, that goes a long way because it's an actual, it's your handwriting. It's not like a send out card, which is kind of a modified version of your handwriting. It's very personal, but it's not as personal as actually writing that on yourself. And I don't have the greatest handwriting in the world, but I try. I try to do my best when I write out something. It's usually just a couple of lines like that. But yeah, those are things that are important. Following up after that, after those interviews. I will say one of the things in that is, it's funny that you mentioned like one of your problems. Like when I do podcast interviews, that is always because a lot of the people that come on my Composites podcast are CEOs of companies. And to make them feel comfortable, I always provide them with, I was like, listen, this is, I know sometimes you've not done a lot of these, so I provide the questions up front. But one of the questions I always put in there, what have been your biggest challenges?
Yes.
And for that very reason, because I want to hear and they're usually, if they have time to think about it, they, if you're not hitting them on the fly, and if they've got time to think about it, they'll provide you, and you can usually follow that up on the interview. And then that gives you something to talk about, like you said, after the interview, to follow up with them.
Exactly. What are some other questions? There's some on this sheet that we've got, but what are some of the other questions you ask? Before we go there, so one thing you do is the trade journal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another way you could do this is podcasts, which Jonathan does very well in his industry. Yep. And then another thing you can do is you can write an interview style book. And we haven't really talked about this, I don't think, ever on the podcast, but this was a really popular thing 10 or 15 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Was to interview a bunch of people and then put a book together, and like each chapter was an interview, or each question was a chapter.
Yep.
So let's say you had 7 questions you asked everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You could either have each interview be a chapter, or you could have each question with each answer be a chapter.
Right.
And then you give it a title, whatever, industry specific. And this was like a real, like, common strategy, like expert strategy. David Dutton kind of talked about writing a book to be a local expert.
Yep.
But it's kind of fallen out of favor with social media and everything else. Everybody's so busy doing TikTok videos and Instagram reels that they've forgotten about, not everybody, but a lot of people have forgotten about just these types of interview-based books.
Yep.
So those are the 3 ways you can use it. Write a trade journal article or some type of article that's online. It could even be your own blog post, honestly.
Yep.
It's just it has a little bit more credibility if you're doing it for a publication they recognize. You're probably going to get in front of them easier.
Right.
Podcast, industry-specific podcast, and then, of course, a book. So what are some of the questions you ask? And then we'll also mention 1 or 2 questions that are on here. So you already mentioned the challenges, like what kind of challenges are you facing?
Yeah.
So other questions?
I always ask them, because a lot of the companies that I interview intentionally in the composites industry, a good portion of them are startup companies. Well, companies that have been around for at least 5 or 6 years. And I consider those like they're off the ground companies. They're having success, but they're not like, they haven't been around for 30 years. Right. So
they're not,
but they're getting,
that's obviously a good prospect for you, because they're not.
Oh, that's a great prospect for me. Yeah. Because here's the deal. They're in the position right now of getting a lot of funding. They're getting venture funding. They're getting venture capital that's funding them right now. So they're at a point of success, but they haven't been around for the longevity. So
they haven't gotten set on their suppliers and things like that.
Exactly. Yep, yeah, exactly. And so those are opportunities for me. But I always like to say, the first question I always tell them is like, tell your story, because stories are important. Origin stories. We talk about origin stories, and I say the very first question I'm going to ask you on my podcast is, I want to hear your origin story. I want to hear how you came up with this idea, because a lot of them, and it's usually people that have been with other companies, they come up with an idea of doing something better, and so you get to hear that. So you get to hear where they started, where their background is,
their why.
So their biggest why, what their reasoning is. And you combine that with, they'll reveal a lot, because they like to talk. They like to share the story of the company. So when they reveal that stuff to me, I'm scratching notes down, typically on a podcast. I've got a legal pad in front of me, and I'm like writing notes and stuff like that, because that's good information for me to know. Because if I can't help somebody, typically I can put them in touch with somebody that can. So that's what it's about for me. Sometimes it's just like, I'll give you a case in point example of an interview that I had this past week on my Composites Weekly podcast. I had a guest on who created an organization for women in the composites industry, because she's a business owner. She owns a business herself. So she's like, this idea came about. I met her at a trade show, back in May. And we got to talking. She had this booth set up for women in composites. I was like, cool, I need to interview you and talk about your mission. But, she's a CEO of a company. She wanted to start this organization, Women in Composites, to basically, just create this organization where to bring awareness and help women who are, more and more coming into the composites industry, and really give them support, help, I guess kind of that support that they need. And so after the interview, I was like, this is great. And I said, I've got a couple of people that I want to connect you with, who are females, who are CEOs of companies in this industry, that I think would love to be a part of your organization, help support you in any way. So, perfect example is, there's nothing I could do for her, obviously at that point, but I was able to connect her with other people that, could help her to grow that organization, help support that organization even more. So, which obviously is great, because it comes back on me. I'll see them at various trade shows down the road. Right. She's a CEO of a business. I've got that capital of helping her. I can go back to her because, I found out, in the conversation, they're buying out another business that's actually in the state of Tennessee. It hasn't happened yet, but they're in the process of buying another business out in the state that is a company that manufactures, there's a composite manufacturer. So those are things that come back to you down the road.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because when you're in that non-selling mode, like you're in helping mode,
right?
That's when some of the best information comes out just naturally in conversation that you can file away and be like, okay, when we are ready for sales conversations, I need to remember that, put it in my notes, whatever. Because they're guards down, because you're in helping mode, serving mode.
That's right.
Here's a question that I liked that I think is great for an interview. And people love, like readers of whatever your article or listeners would love this question. What's a key practice or tactic or principle you keep coming back to? Because people love to know what CEOs and successful people know.
Right.
That's why Ray Dalio's, principles did so well, because everybody wants to know what this rich guy knows that other people don't, that they think they don't know. So I think that's a great question. What's a key practice or tactic or principle you keep coming back to? It's just
I love these.
Real good question,
dude. I could copy and paste. I mean, like I said, a couple of these I use, but I could use every one of these in my interviews. And some of these, like that one, I don't ever use that, but that would be a great one.
Yeah. And you get that's an insight that's really unique, because you see some of their principles and their kind of goes back to the why. It's a little bit deeper question. Although they may say, I do first in, first out accounting. Like that's everything I do revolves around that, or who knows? It could be anything. What's another question you like on this list?
I like the crystal ball that follows up. What does your next level of success look like? Because that gives you a lot of.
It's a great wrap up question too. It's like it's like the bonus question.
Right. What are your goals? Where are you heading? Because this guy's, this will open up all kinds of avenues for you. If they're revealing, okay, what are our next plans as a company? Because you may not they may not reveal what you can help them with initially, but if they're talking about plans to expand into this market or this market, and you're like, oh, wait, I can help you there. I may not be able to help you in your current market, but if there are other markets that you're looking at, oh, wait a minute. It reminds me of a conversation I was having today with a guy in one industry. And, he's talking about one of their product lines because, where they're heading. This was the owner of a company. And I'm like, okay. So he was talking about some of their stuff. And it's like, can't really help you with, where your current market is. Like there's no crossover. So it would be a little too much for me to expand or help you in terms of marketing or selling to that market. But then he mentioned a market like in the concrete industry, which there's some crossover there. And I said, well, I can help you there because I know some contacts, and there's some obviously there's a big show out in Las Vegas called World of Concrete that I go to on occasion, that I can certainly be of help to them at that event. So those things like that, when you're having that conversation, talking to them, like what are other areas that you're planning on, spreading your product line or your services into? What areas are you moving into? What's your next level of success look like? And
and I think you could even ask, what's your next level of success personally look like?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're obviously you're a successful CEO. Like, so what's next for you personally?
Right.
Whether it's in the business or outside the business.
Absolutely.
Then you gotta get a good idea of what's important to them. Which, as you know, Jonathan, that's a whole lot easier to sell to that than it is a commodity of some kind or something like that.
That's right. Absolutely.
So really what you do is you start asking, these are questions you might ask in a over a period of months if you were trying to build rapport, and especially Jonathan, like you, with it, that has a little bit longer sales cycle. These are the questions you might ask over 6 months of dinners and golf games and everything else, and you can get them all answered in 45 minutes in an interview.
Right.
Because it's just that kind of format where you're allowed to kind of just ask these upfront questions.
Yep. Absolutely.
That you couldn't really ask just bang, 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 bang in a first meeting with somebody.
Right.
So it really it accelerates the whole process. And I love what he says on this PDF. He's like, if you're doing this, first of all, you should be following up with them every 7 to 10 days after the interview and sending them, a thank you card, thank you email, a link to the finished article, a copy of your book if you have one, an article that's related to something they talked about, anything that might help them, any problem they came up, an article they might like, you just drip them every 7 to 10 days.
Yes.
And then he did the math. He said, like, if you did 3 of these a week, 3 interviews a week, 12 a month, in 90 days, you'd have 36 prospects who you could talk to.
Yep. Absolutely.
And most people probably don't have 36 prospects in a year, much less a quarter.
Yep.
Is it easy? No. You got to sit down and do 3 interviews a week, and you got to get 3 people to agree to an interview per week. So it's not super easy, but it's easier than knocking on cold doors.
Absolutely.
And trying to get past gatekeepers with just a request and no benefit or anything like that. So I think
I was going to say, here's a tip. If you don't have your own book, if you haven't authored your own book, you can always send somebody else's book.
Absolutely.
And the way you do this is, if you've noticed, anytime you order a book on Amazon, if you check out at the very end, they give you the option of making that a gift, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You can gift wrap that book.
Yep.
So if you don't have a book, take a book that would be beneficial to them, whether it's on leadership, whether it's on, in my industry, if it's lean manufacturing, maybe you're sending something on that, maybe, whatever problem they're dealing with, give them value. If you don't have the book, send another book, send a book that would be beneficial for them. And then as you're checking out on Amazon, just use the gift wrapped option where they gift package it.
It's like $3 to wrap a book.
Easy. Yeah. $3. And then you can create a little personalized message that they will include with that book along with it. So, and I've done that, as a follow-up.
Yeah. And it's nice wrapping paper. Like I've done it a couple times for people, and
absolutely.
I've done it for people in my family. So I've seen the package when it comes, and they do a good job.
It does. Yeah. It looks great.
And who doesn't love unwrapping a gift? I mean, that's just,
it's perfect.
Yeah. So
it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be the author, but they will appreciate that gift from you. Right.
Obviously,
and I've done that with, Send Out Cards offers that. I've gotten meetings with executives, at companies by sending them, I'll send a Send Out Card, and Send Out Cards allows you to attach there's only a limited number of books that you can send, but some of them are pretty good. Yeah. So I've done that with a greeting card. Amazon to me is the best option especially when you're looking at books, because you can send anything out there, any kind of book.
So make sure you get their physical address somewhere in the conversation.
Absolutely.
And you can say, hey, I want to send you something. Can I get your physical address? Because you've built rapport with them on the thing. So before you finish, make sure you grab of course, if you know what their company is, like if they're a brick and mortar, you're going to have their address and you just put it to their attention.
Yep.
But if you don't, then you make sure you ask for that. So, all right. Well, I think we're right about our time. I don't think we really have time to go into another thing, because I know you got places to be.
Sounds like a continuation for next week.
We've got we'll talk next week about cold email questions.
I love this.
That'll be good.
This may be perfect to push this off to next week, because I may have a guest on cold emails that may be joining us. So we have him join us, and then a follow-up. So
and then we got another words that close. So some questions that help close sales. And then I still want to talk about, I don't think we've talked yet about Mint Mobile and their current ad campaign. So maybe we'll sneak that in. It's just a real quick thing and what Ryan Reynolds is doing over there at Mint Mobile, and talk about his agency a little bit, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
So,
Ryan Reynolds. Wow.
Yeah. Dude gets around. He's these celebrities that they're getting smart. They're like,
he's got his own, he's got this, he's got, he's an actor. He's
got Aviation Gin.
That's right. The gin. I was trying to think of the alcohol, which was a gin. Yeah.
That's right. Aviation Gin, Mint Mobile. Obviously acting. Deadpool was basically his movie, that he helped finance and everything. So yeah, he's doing pretty well, I would say. And all these actors, they're really diversifying.
I think they have to, with what's happening throughout. You look at Netflix and what's happening there.
Yeah.
The movie industry's down big time. Despite the fact that we got Top Gun right now, and they probably I forgot what they're at. It's like what is it, 1 billion now?
Yeah, they crossed the billion mark worldwide.
So I mean, they're doing well, but they're kind of a they're that they're unique. I would say, there's not many movies out there right now. I think movie sales are probably down, despite the fact that you've got a couple of them that are doing pretty well. And I think everyone in Hollywood's probably looking for, right now at this point, with the way things are going, looking at alternative ways. You've got to probably to.
Well, yeah, I mean, they got to pay for gas. They got to pay for gas too, right?
That's right. That's right.
Poor celebrities, man. Man,
yeah, they're not $20 million a film actors like everybody thinks they are. I mean, those are those are the A-list actors. And it's a struggle.
It's a diversification, and
you got to.
Yeah. And I think they've done it in the past. Actors have done that, back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Yeah. But I think you see it more, and it's more accessible now to a lot of them. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk next week about cold emails. We'll talk about words that close. We'll talk about Mint Mobile, Ryan Reynolds, all that stuff. So I think it'll be a good show. And
I'm looking forward to it.
You have a great weekend, sir.
Yeah, you too. And to all of our listeners, you find us over at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your platforms, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, you name it. And we will see you all next week. We'll do a couple of shows. Looking forward to it. Sean, have a great weekend.
See ya.
All right.